This is the Clear Money Talk podcast, offering up creative solutions for your retirement future through education, choice, transparency, and empathy. Now, your host, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners, Tim Claremont.
Hello, friends. I'm Tim Claremont. I am the CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners. Welcome to Clear Money Talk. I am so happy you're here today. As always, I am here with my wondrous partner, Tyler.
Thanks, Tim.
Tyler,
we're excited to be in the podcast studio. Tim started the podcast with a little bit of a different intro today, which is taking me off guard, but I like it.
It's going to just
He's
changing
keeping it
up.
fresh, man.
Welcome to Clear Money
Yeah,
Talk.
it's good.
It's funny. I'm feeling a little different than normal. So we're recording this in early July 2024. So this will probably release in a couple of weeks. So somewhere around mid to end of July, you'll get a chance to listen to this. You might be listening to this at this time, or maybe you're looking back on it as months from now and looking back and just wanting to get the answer to this question. But for me personally, we just got away from a really good 4th of July weekend together where I consumed more food than I probably should have. So I'm feeling the pressure of my shirt right now as I definitely need to get my workout in. So anyway, the health is one of those things that we got to take care of, and
it is.
Being healthy, both physically and then also being healthy with our money is kind of what we're all about. So
nice
Clear Money Talk
there.
Yeah, there you go.
Good.
Yeah. Let's see what we can do. So
we're excited to be here today.
Yeah, we're very
like
excited
always.
to be here. Let's answer the question. So the question for today is...
We got a fun one. It took us a while. We fine-tuned this one. We're really excited to talk about this. The question of the day is, how should my recent graduate get started with investing?
Yes. How should my recent graduate get started with investing? So this was actually inspired. I was sitting down with a client at one of our recent client events a couple of weeks ago, and her 21-year-old had recently graduated from school and was interested in getting started in investing. And she was asking me, and he was asking me, what they should do to get started. And I thought, this is probably a good question that a lot of people actually are curious about. And we're happy to answer that question. So
that's a great question.
Whether your child is a recent graduate, or your grandchild, for that matter, is a recent graduate of high school or college, either way, the point is there's this element of some kids are a little more motivated to save than others are. Some parents are a little more motivated to get their kids saving than others are. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. But in any of those scenarios, where should they start? And I think we can start right away by answering that question. So
I think so.
Yeah.
We can keep it pretty tight.
I may or may not have communicated this previously. If you're a longtime listener, you may have heard this analogy before. But if this is the first time you're listening to this, or the first time you're hearing the analogy, it's one that I use very regularly in my mind when I'm thinking about where people should invest first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So if you've ever seen on a movie, or if you were lucky enough to see this in real life, awesome. I wish. I haven't seen this in real life yet. That fountain of those like champagne glasses or martini glasses, where there's one at the top and then there's another ring, and somebody pops the bottle of champagne and they pour it in the top glass, and then magically, of course, it overflows into the second row and the third row and everything. And it's I'm sure it really in real life makes a mess, but it's still pretty cool looking when it's done right. That visual, I hope, helps you understand how to get started with investing. When you're just getting going. What you're asking me is, what's that top martini glass? What's that top champagne glass that we're going to pour into first? And then when that's filled, then where do we go next? And it flows into the next ring and the next ring and the next ring. So as we think through that, the main motivator that I have when I'm giving advice to a client like this is what's going to produce the best tax benefits and the best rate of return opportunity. And rate of return is one of those things that most people that are investing are going to take risk in things like stocks or stock mutual funds or those kinds of investments. And when you're taking risk, we can't guarantee a rate of return, right? Could go value of any kind of investment like that can go up or down. But where you put it first is that first glass. If the child or grandchild or recent graduate has access to a 401k through work that has a match, any kind of match contribution is free money. That is the very first glass to fill. So if there's a match available through the employer, then you want to make sure you're taking full advantage of that match. And there's a lot of matches out there for 401ks. For example, there's something called the Safe Harbor match, which is a pretty common one you'll find on a lot of employers. And it's 3% dollar for dollar on the first 3% of their income they contribute, and then 50% of the fourth and fifth percent that they contribute. So if they put in 5% or more of their income, the employer often will end up matching 4%. And that 4% is just free money. So even though they may or may not be invested in it immediately, sometimes there's a vesting schedule that takes some time. It doesn't really matter. The point is, take all the free money you can take and encourage your kid or grandkid to take all the free money they can take as far as that particular contribution is concerned. If they're not thinking that they're going to stay in the job for very long, who cares? When they leave the employer, they can roll over their 401k to a retirement account, IRA, things like that, and still keep the money. So it doesn't mean don't contribute. It means go ahead, do it, contribute, and figure out how to take advantage of that. If they're lucky enough to have a match that's maybe 6 or 8 or 10 or 15% of their income, just a really generous match. We've seen stuff like that before. Go all the way to the maximum match dollars. That's the first glass. So if it maxes at 5%, make sure they do at least 5%. If it maxes at 15%, go all the way to 15%, and that's the first glass. After you're over that, then we can talk about other places to go. Before we pivot from there, the 401k, you have to make a decision on whether you want to do a Roth or traditional contribution. Because your child or grandchild is likely earning less money at this stage than they're going to earn probably for the rest of their lives, contributing as a Roth contribution probably makes more sense. And the benefit of that, you can go back and listen to some of our podcasts if you want to get more detail on Roth versus traditional. But fundamentally, a Roth 401k means the money goes in after taxes. So they're going to spend the tax dollars now while they're making less money and presumably in lower tax brackets. And then all of the growth on that Roth 401k money will come out tax-free after 59 and a half years old. So you're investing that money for a long-term time frame, and then after 59 and a half, you can take all of those earnings out tax-free, which has huge tax benefits in that capacity. If for some reason this particular individual is extremely successful, maybe they just won some kind of a game show or something like that. Maybe they got $1 million or something from a big win that they had, and their income is abnormally high this year. Then you definitely should reconsider that Roth decision. There are other tax things to factor in, but the average recent graduate that's just getting started likely has a low income. If they have a low income, contributing in a Roth 401k to the maximum match dollars would be the first place to get started. Yeah. More to say on this topic, but I'm going to stop there for a moment and let Tyler weigh in. Any thoughts, Tyler?
No, I think it's great. And one of the best part about a 401k is the convenience of it too. So not only the match dollars, which yes, who doesn't like free money? I mean, I know I like free money. I feel good when I find money on the ground. And if you're not at least getting the match from your employer, you're missing out on that, additional compensation as part of your overall compensation package through your employer. But your employer's not going to come to you and say, hey, you're not hitting the full match, Tyler, or, you need to increase it. They're not going to come to you and say that. It's your responsibility to do that. But going back to what I was saying is the convenience factor of the 401k comes from your payroll. You don't even see the money hit your bank account. You don't have the chance to even spend the money. And for somebody that's a recent graduate, that, the simplicity is probably key at that point in their life as they're just getting going with a lot of different stuff. Simplicity is bliss, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
it leans
there's something
into
to be
that.
said for that.
Absolutely. It leans into the natural self-discipline of saving. There's this phrase that's been around for a long time, pay yourself first. And pay yourself first is a phrase that refers to, hey, make sure you're putting your money aside out of your paycheck for yourself for later. And by contributing to a 401k and having it deducted from your paycheck, you're actually that's one of the easiest ways to pay yourself first. That money comes out, goes into an account in your name. You own the account. It's your 401k, nobody else's 401k. Some things you should be aware of course, if the money goes into this kind of a 401k account and then you decide you want to take it out before you're 59 and a half years old and spend it on like a car or something else random or whatever, right? The money that you put in was after-tax money, but the earnings you've never paid taxes on. So if you dip into those earnings before you're 59 and a half, you will pay, the child, in this case, or the recent graduate, will pay ordinary income taxes plus a 10% penalty tax if that money comes out just for a random distribution like a car or something like that. There are some exceptions on the 10% penalty tax being charged if the money comes out for school expenses, college, for example. It can come out for that you still pay ordinary income taxes on the earnings, but no 10% penalty tax. And that could also be school expenses for their own child. So if they want to access the money for their own children, when their children go to school, they could actually dip into this Roth 401k for that purpose if they chose to. And then they can also dip into it for the purchase of their first house without the 10% penalty tax, up to a limit. I believe that limit's $10,000 at this time. Yeah. So there are a few exceptions that'll allow them to access it, but generally speaking, it's not supposed to be touched until down the road. Mm-hmm. And that's really the power of compound interest working to their benefit. So the individual I was speaking with was 21 years old. So 21 years old, he wants to get started investing, wants to start contributing on a regular basis. And we were talking about the impact of compound interest. And I remember when I was 21, and I had just graduated college. I had just gotten started doing financial planning. This is 1997, 21 years old. And I was told this mathematical truth, which is, by the way, Albert Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest, which I'm a huge fan of that. Yeah. But this mathematical truth is, if you have, let's say, somebody who's 21 years old that just saves a couple $1,000s a year into an IRA account, $2,000 a year from 21 till 30 or 31, let's say 10 years, and then they stop contributing all the way until they hit 61. So it's a 40-year runway, 21 to 61. They save for the first 10 years, and then they don't save anything for the next 30 years. And you compare that against the person who waits until they're 31, and they save the same $2,000 a year for 30 years, and then you look and see who has more money at 61 years old. And the person who saved for 10 years, assuming they got the same rate of return, the person who saved for 10 years has more money than the person who saved for 30 years, from 31 to 61. And that's just the power of compound interest. So save as early as you can, as young as you can, get started, get money going into those accounts. And the more you save, the more compound interest should be available for you down the road. Admittedly, that does kind of lean into how should we invest that Roth 401k. So if they do contribute to the Roth 401k, they've got to make some choices. And there's different options in there. And we've seen choices. The most conservative option might be like a money market account or a stable value kind of account or some kind of a CD equivalent, option. And then the most aggressive choices could be anything from international stock mutual funds, emerging markets funds, or sector funds like a tech fund or a health care fund or something like that. So there's a wide variety of investment options available inside of that Roth 401k. And I can't tell you legally, I just can't tell you that you should do this or shouldn't do this. I want to tell you that really badly, but I have to say that one-on-one. I can't say that in a mass podcast because everybody's different. Everybody has to decide for themselves how much risk they're comfortable taking. And because of that, it's a very personal decision. But it's good to pay attention. The time frame you're planning on investing, the longer the time frame, typically the more risk you can afford to take. And under normal circumstances, most individuals that are contributing might want to at least consider the age-based retirement portfolios that might be available. So you'll notice something like an automatic one-stop shop allocation choice in a lot of these 401ks. That's like the 2050 fund, the 2055 fund, the 2075 fund, and so on. Those are designed so that the investor can pick when they're thinking they're going to retire, pick the date they think they're going to retire, and then invest in that fund. And that fund will automatically have a higher level of aggressiveness when they're younger and automatically get more conservative as they get closer to retirement. That's the design of that fund. And again, I'm not saying that's what you should do, but it's worth considering in addition to all of the other traditional investment options that might make sense. But yeah, longer the time frame, the more aggressive I would say it's worth considering.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the 401k. We got other stuff to do. Yeah, but before we pivot to what's next, you didn't plug the book of the quote that you dropped a minute ago of Pay Yourself First. Do you want to plug the book? Because that might be a good place to,
which book?
For a young investor to start reading and learning is The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, The Richest Man of Babylon.
Which is one of their, one of the, philosophies from that book is Pay Yourself First.
Yes, it is.
And that's a great book to pick up. It's a quick read and worth considering reading.
Yeah,
if you're just getting started.
And I think it's worth acknowledging this too. we're agnostic when it comes to any kind of personal, moral, spiritual, religious affiliations or wherever you might be. You hear The Richest Man in Babylon, and you might think that it's a religious book in some capacity, it's not. I mean, it really is more of really good stories. A bunch of different short stories about saving and investing, and a lot of times we've given that book to recent graduates. So whether it's a high school grad or a college grad, it's a great book that has a lot of really good insights into money and how to do smart stuff with money. So,
absolutely.
Pay yourself first is a good one.
It's one of those.
Worth making you aware of that.
Yeah.
The other, the other thing. Yeah, you talked about the second ring. So where do we go with the second ring? Once they max out that match dollars, that might not be a big number. I mean, if let's say they're making $50,000 a year their first year out of recent graduate, and their match is only 5%, they're going to get maybe 4% dollar for dollar on 5% of their income. Well, if they put 5% of their income in, that's on $50,000, that's $2,500 per year. So it's not bad. It's a good start.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
What do they do if they want to save more than $2,500 a year, especially if they're a recent grad with low expenses? They might even be still living at home. And if they're in that scenario where they have very, very low expenses, they want to save even more money, they shouldn't stop at $2,500. The more money they put away at this young age, the more powerful that portfolio will be. We also have to consider, what if they want to save money that they're going to touch before they're 59 and a half years old? Yeah. And where do we look at going there? For example, those match dollars, again, great dollars to take the free match dollars, but that next ring is where you start to say, okay, well, if this is before 59 and a half, where do we put it? If it's after 59 and a half, where do we put it? We start making those decisions. But I would say the next glass that is most likely to be filled for most recent graduates is going to be the Roth IRA. And the reason for that is the Roth IRA, you can stick in up to $6,000 this year. Is it $7,000 now?
$7,000 if you're under 50.
Just keep making more room.
That's
awesome.
Cool.
Love it. Yeah. So $7,000 per year. And so if the next $7,000, so if the first $2,500 in this example are the first match dollars that they take, gets them to whatever they're saving there, and they want to save more, the next $7,000 typically, considering a Roth IRA is a good choice. The $7,000 that goes in is after tax money. The earnings, just like the Roth 401k, will come out tax-free after 59 and a half, and they have the same rules as far as access for that 10% penalty tax on the earnings. But one of the differences with the Roth IRA that's worth noting is the contributions themselves, the $7,000 of after-tax money, can be withdrawn at any point in time without any penalty or without any tax consequences. So if they saved $7,000 a year, maxing out a Roth IRA theoretically from 21 till 31 years old, they'd have put $70,000 of their own money in, and maybe it's worth 100 or 150, or we don't know, depends on how the investments perform. But if there's if there's $70,000 or more in there, they can take out the $70,000 that they contributed at any time tax-free. So it's got liquidity as well, so they could access that money if they needed it. And that makes it another good next place to start saving. And as far as, for clients that work with us, we have a lot of clients that want to make sure their kids and their grandkids get going and get contributing. And when they're working with us, their children and grandkids are an extension of them. And we try to help them out as well and make sure that their kids and their grandkids are going to be taken care of and doing all the things they want, so they can pass on those values and that wisdom and not miss out on those opportunities. So if that is your mindset as well, then don't hesitate to reach out to us and have a conversation. We'd be happy to talk to you as well. But I would say that'd be the next best place to go. There's more stuff we can talk about. Let's go ahead. You want to keep going deeper into the rings, Tyler?
We can keep going deeper into the rings. Yeah, I think it's worth noting. I don't know how deep into the rings we want to go on this, but other things to consider doing as a recent grad is, depending on your situation, is potentially paying down high interest debts. If you have student loans or things like that, obviously you're going to have to maintain those and sustain those and pay them, so that way you're not going into default on those or anything. So that might be a portion of your income dedicated to that right there. Making sure you have an emergency fund that's adequate for your comfortability is important too. But once we have all that stuff out of the way, that's the stuff that Tim and I are trying to focus on today.
That's right. It's like, how does my recent graduate get started investing? So on the investing side of it, that's what we're talking about. But absolutely, you got to have that emergency fund.
It's worth noting that stuff.
Yeah, and you got to make sure you're making your payments on your debts, and don't go into more debt. Always pay less than always spend less than your paycheck. Always make sure that your debts are at the lowest possible interest rate, and either consider the avalanche or snowball method in attacking the debt aggressively.
Nice,
take a look at our previous podcast about how to get yourself out of debt.
Yeah.
We have a whole podcast on that particular
topic. That's a good one.
If you got some debts, it's a good one to give it a good listen to and learn something smart about money.
I'm a little biased. I mean, we did record it.
We did.
We are pretty good, though.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Okay, what would the third bucket be?
I think the third bucket, if I'm just getting started, would be it would be a tie. Either just a normal mutual fund portfolio that's liquid, so you can invest in that account and try to grow it, and you can use it for whatever you might want to use it for. You'll pay taxes on the earnings as you grow the assets, but it's liquid, so you can dip into it in your 20s, 30s, whatever. Maybe save for the purchase of a house. That's a reasonable option. There's no limit on how much you can save there. We're just trying to get a better rate of return than a typical savings account if you're going to invest in something like that. Alternatively, you can use a savings account or CD if your risk tolerance doesn't allow you the comfortability to go over that FDIC insured guaranteed level. If that's what you need, if you have to have FDIC insured protection on my principal, then use a bank, use a CD, use savings accounts. That's okay. I would encourage you, if your time frame for spending the money is greater than 5 years, to consider taking more risk, because the bank accounts will not likely beat inflation. Inflation is usually greater than the rate of return you would earn in a bank account, and that means you're actually losing purchasing power. So if you have a plan to spend money in 5 years or more, you want to try to invest in something that can retain that purchasing power and actually have real growth, which means that you need to get a rate of return higher than inflation. And historically, the only asset classes we've seen that have beat inflation on a long period of time are real estate and the stock market. But those come with risk of loss of principal, especially in a short period of time. So you have to give that consideration as well and figure out your own risk tolerance. Yeah. But I would say, non-qualified brokerage account. And then the tie on that would be life insurance.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, if you're healthy and you're young and life insurance is inexpensive, might be a good idea for you to lock in your health at this moment and lock in some of those life insurance prices at this moment while you're young, and at least have a reasonable amount of life insurance. Whether you use term insurance or whether you use a permanent policy and contribute to that, just depends upon your long-term plans and where you're planning on going. But getting that while you're healthy is a good idea. And I would say that would be the next place I would give consideration to.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, there's probably more stuff we could talk about.
There's always
those rings go deep. There's always another place.
There's
to save
always
your money.
other places to stick your money.
That's right. But,
it's trying to tailor it to this question: how should my recent graduate get started with investing? And I think the three things that you just hit on, Tim, are great concepts and ideas to consider. Not by any means a recommendation. Your situation is unique, and you should factor in all those things. But definitely the most common places that most beginner investors consider.
That's right.
When starting out. Yeah.
We should probably do just the answer for those that are only listening to just the answer. Here's your quick answer. So,
okay.
Go ahead. What's the question?
Just the answer. How should my recent graduate get started with investing?
Got it. How should my recent graduate get started with investing? The quick rundown, and I strongly recommend, as always, listen to the full podcast because it's fun anyway. But
we have a good time.
Just the answer, here you go. Number one is consider the match dollars if they're available at your employer. Take full advantage of the match dollars. Number two, if you've maxed out the match dollars, then consider a Roth IRA up to the maximum would be the next one to give consideration to. And then number three is a tie between either a non-qualified brokerage account or life insurance, locking in your health safely while you're young and presumably healthy, and life insurance is less expensive, so you can look at life insurance, or a non-qualified brokerage account where you can have the money invested and try to beat, pay attention to inflation, try to beat inflation if you're not going to touch the money in the next 5 years or less. If you're going to touch the money in the next 2 years or less, you should probably look at bank accounts, savings accounts, things like that. And none of this should be an instead of having an emergency fund and making sure your debts are taken care of. So
correct.
Always make sure your emergency fund is covering your regular expenses. Spend less than your paycheck. That's how you make sure you don't get in trouble. And then get those debts paid down, pay off the highest interest rate ones, reposition the debt to the lower positions, and consider the avalanche or snowball methods from our previous podcast.
Very nice. Would you consider, if somebody gets the match dollars, they max out their Roth IRA, would you then consider going back to the 401k to make sure that you max that out too before doing the brokerage account and life insurance stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a fair third. That's another. Actually, that's a reasonable tie for third as well with the brokerage account, the life insurance, or over contributing to that Roth 401k, because the above and beyond the match, you still have more room in the Roth 401k all the way up to $23,000 this year, I believe, if you're under the age of 50. And then,
23.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So 23.5. Thank you. Thank you for the, it keeps changing a little bit each year. They give it a little bit more room.
Sorry, no, it's 23.
Is it 23?
It's always changing. It's 23 with the $7,500 catch up.
Catch up.
Up to $30,500 if you're
got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so $23,000 is your limit if you're under the age of 50 and you're contributing to a Roth 401k. You can go all the way up to $23,000. Even if you only made $25,000 that year, you can put all $23,000 of that, most of that money in, which is pretty awesome. So, and it is a great place to stuff a bunch of extra money. You just know that that's being saved up for a further timeline down the road. So I would say, what's the purpose of the money? And then that'll help steer you towards the non-qualified brokerage account, the life insurance, or over contributing to the Roth 401k. But I would still take the match dollars first, then the Roth IRA maxed out because you have most control over the investment selection there, and then consider over contributing to the Roth 401k or opening a non-qualified brokerage account or taking care of your life insurance needs.
Yeah. And if any of this is overwhelming, give us a call. 503-579-1000. We talk to people about this stuff all the time.
That's right. That's what we do. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and move into trivia, right?
Yeah, you can't get past the trivia, man.
What do you got for
You're trying
me?
To close it out without the trivia.
Yeah. I know. It's like we don't want to go too long on the podcast.
No, we don't.
But yeah.
Okay. Trivia of the day. The anniversary of the death of what magician is recognized as National Magic Day in the United States?
Oh, well, yeah, there's only one magician that stands up to me as the most famous magician of all time that it's just pops up. And I mean, there's certainly a lot of other magicians that, I would imagine that come to mind, Penn and Teller and, some of the others.
They're not
out
dead,
there,
are they?
No.
Yeah.
So
this person's.
This person's long since passed.
Got it.
So I would say no. The number one famous magician that I can imagine is Harry Houdini. So,
bingo.
Harry Houdini.
Do you know what day of the? Yeah, Harry Houdini. Do you know what day?
Clue.
It's Halloween, October 31st.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I guess that makes sense. So Harry Houdini. who doesn't love magic? I mean, magic is when you think one thing's going to happen and something else happens instead. And that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool when magic kind of shocks you like that. There's some really cool shows on Netflix lately that I've been enjoying. The magic for magic prank show and stuff like that. Whoever that guy is, it's been a good time.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Should we leave the listeners with wise words?
Oh yeah.
What do you got? I just teed it up. Now you just got to bring it home.
Wise words. Okay.
You already had something. You said pay yourself first.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yep. Pay yourself first, and compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Powerful. Just save early, spend less than your paycheck. And there's a lot of good wise words in this episode. Hopefully that helps everybody be more successful. And if you've learned something smart about money today, please go to somethingsmartaboutmoney.com and get yourself counted, because we're trying to teach 1 billion people something smart about money. That's why we're here. Yeah, that's right. That's all I know. Any other final?
Final. Don't be scared to start.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Don't be scared to start.
Don't be scared to start. Start now.
Everyone starts somewhere.
Don't start tomorrow. Start today.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up.
Thanks for joining us on Clear Money Talk. Until next time.
Investment advisory services are offered through Clear FP Advisors, LLC, or Registered Investment Advisor. Securities are offered through Clear FP Securities, LLC, member of FINRA IPC. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments may fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Timothy Claremont is licensed in your state, please contact his office. Clear FP Advisors, Clear FP Securities, and Clear FP Life LLC are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Clear FP, LLC NPN number 194283777 and or Clear FP Securities NPN number 197499604. Any discussion of general investing strategies or specific securities are for conversational purposes only and should not be taken as a guaranteed endorsement or recommendation.